All right, everybody, here we go. Today we are sort of back to normal. I gave a little experiment yesterday where I was just doing some work that needs to be done, and it was fun for me, but I see that it maybe wasn't as fun as for you guys. So I'm back here again, and I'm here to answer questions and just sort of hang out with everybody. I mean, I'm here to spend time with all of you, is really what this is, and I'm happy to be here. So come on in, talk to me. Let's I mean, there's so much that you guys have asked me over the years. Actually, maybe what I'll do is I'll just start by sort of having fun and jumping in to some questions like that are asked in general poker dealer groups like on Facebook. Um, and let me just pull this up over here so I can get myself into the chat properly, or maybe I can add the chat here. Studio mode. I think there's a way to do this here. No, not that. But yeah, and then we got school starting soon. Very exciting next week. Ready to go. Ready to start training everybody that's in the remote dealer school. It's a brand new thing. This is an innovation. This is something that's never been done before. It's a regular dealer school, but remote. And I actually take advantage of what remote offers, which is video recordings that are super easy to have, and you get to be recorded while you're practicing over and over again as we go through the whole thing. And that's a thing, that's a skill that I've developed and a talent that I've developed and a strategy I've developed over 6 years or so. I started doing one-on-one video recorded sessions back in the beginning of COVID, and I mean, it is by far the most powerful way to teach somebody. And it's like all this practice that I have, and I'm here to bring this to you in class. And you get to do this with your peers, you get to do this on your own after the fact. Like, never before in any school has the homework been so valuable. And so, yeah, you get to watch yourself be recorded. So, look, I'm really excited about it. Just a little less than a week left to get into the school before we start, and we're gonna have some good dealers coming out of this. People got to put the work in, of course, but uh, this is where I'm ready to go, and I hope you're ready to go. And yeah, for right now, I'm just here for anything. So let me pull up some of these things in the Facebook groups that I've seen. I'm gonna put it on the screen in a second. I just want to get myself in here. We'll just sort of dive in. Um, let's see. Let me try to figure this out for just a second. All right, so that does show the correct screen. And that's good. All right. And let me try this here, and this here a little bit, and this here. And I don't know what I'm going to be reading exactly, but I'm excited to do it. So let's go like this. Shrink it down a bit so we just get the question on there. And oh, I can see that's going to be too small. All right, let's actually take a peek at this. We'll let this come on up. We have here. Oh, I got the video. This video is on the top somehow. Oh, right. I moved that up. Not this. All right. So there we go. So yeah, so just like always, let's hear you guys in the chat talking about whatever you want, asking me anything you want. And in the meantime, I'm going to try to hit up some questions that get asked on Facebook, talk through the answers. So here in this Facebook group, we've got a person basically saying sorry for the back-to-back post. Who knows what they said before that? But there's a hypothetical here, which these type of questions get asked all the time in these groups, and it's both good for everybody, and also it's fundamentally missing. Um, it's like when you ask your peers stuff, you get peer quality answers. Uh, Nobody's correcting the way the question's being asked so that it has more potential to be answered. Nobody's like in there helping the people that want to know the stuff frame their minds properly in order to be able to receive the answers to the questions they want. And I haven't read this yet, but we're going to start here. So it says seat 8, dead button. Knocked out hand before. All right. Seat 9, new player. Seat empty, hand before. Seat 1, small blind. Seat 2, small blind. So we can just actually recreate that on the table here for anybody that's watching. And I'll clean some of these up. All right, so where's this going to be? It's over here. 8, 9, 1, and 2. All right. So let's actually go like this. And I'm going to make it so you can see in a second. So I see. All right, so I've got, let's put this up here for a sec. We'll cover up our little message for the moment, not a problem. And so right here is seat 1. So we got 1 and 2, and we got 8 and 9, and you can't quite see 9. So let's bring this down here. I'll bring this up a little bit. All right. So let me get that out of here for the moment. Here. So this is going to go up here. That works great. Awesome. All right. So in the shot here, you can see seat 8, seat 9, seat 1, seat 2. So it's saying that there's a dead button right here, and we're going to take these chips out of here. And we'll split these up between these 2 players over here. You know, in order to do a demonstration, definitely got to move stuff around, etc. And, you know, most tournaments will have 1K chips, whatever. You guys are fine. So we'll put all these over here. And a lot of the times, a new player will come to the table in a tournament with, like, let's say that this is 3K, it'd be something crazy, like 25K or who knows what. I'm just going to give them this stack right here. So basically, dead button right here. And let's get this out of the shot. Dead button right here. Seat 8. New player comes to the table. And you've got small blind, big blind. We'll say it's 100, 200. All right, player just got busted, and this is tournament. And you can ignore all the other chips on the table. All right. So when that's the case, player comes to the table. This player is asking, the debate is, do we deal in the new player? And let me actually make it a little bigger here for myself. Do we deal in the new player? The spirit of the rule is any new player can be dealt in so long as dealing them in doesn't affect the blinds. It specifically states that a new player can assume the small blind or button if no player occupies that position. So what did I do? With an assist from a player, I let seat 9 assume the button, and I dealt him in. None of the blinds were affected, and the game continued without a hitch. My question is, who still thinks this is wrong, and why? Has anyone changed their mind since the last debate? So I don't know what the last debate was. But basically the scenario, so for a long time, poker basically said, in a tournament, you cannot get the button under any circumstance unless you paid the big and the small blind. That was tournament mentality for a really long time. And the idea of that made sense in theory, but in practice what would happen is players would come to the table and they would sit down, and like someone would sit in a dead button, and it's all random, right? So they'd be there with the dead button and they'd be like, really, why can't I get a hand? It's all random. You guys are okay putting me in the big blind automatically. Why can't I be the button automatically? I just sat down. Like, what's the difference? Why make me wait? Sometimes a hand takes 10 minutes. Why make me wait? And the poker, the TDA thought about it, and they decided it actually doesn't matter. There's literally no good reason not to give them a hand there. It's totally reasonable. It's completely random. It's not like they're receiving some benefit. It's not like they're choosing to come to the game and sitting in the button seat. they're literally just coming to a game that they're randomly assigned the seat. We're going to let them do that. So now the player's saying, can you deal this player in right here and have it be okay? And their solution is now what they said they did was they moved the dead button from here to here, almost like a math formula, making it so that this player who's coming in to sit here, instead of sitting them here, or instead of sitting them here and letting them play the button, we now have this adjusted rule, they're sitting them here. And the question that they're posing is, why can't we just do things that make sense? If we're going to let him play over here, why can't we let him play over here? And it's a reasonable question, right? Like the experience of paying for a tournament and not getting to play a hand when you were there before the hand started, it's a bad experience. It's a little bit on the frustrating side, but at the same time, like if we have this whole randomness thing, a lot of people would say, well, look, you could have been randomly sat at the button seat. You were randomly sat in seat 9 in a tournament. It's sort of the luck of the draw, and every single hand impacts the rest of the tournament for everybody. So maybe we would say that that's not fair. Um, let's see. So Jamon, I see your question, and let me just finish this quick thing, another 3 minutes, and then I'll get right to it. I appreciate you putting that question in the chat. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to check the chat in a second. Sorry, the comments in a second for this Facebook post. But Brett basically said, here's what my solution was. Now, the truth is, I don't actually care what solution is used in this situation. The problem that's being posed is traditionally they can't play this hand, they miss this hand. And then there's two sides to it from here, right? Like there's the one side where this player who sits in between the small blind and the button, they they're they're not going to be the button next hand, right? So would we be allowed to let them play because it is an advantage? Like if somebody just paid for the button, for them not to get the button next hand is a disadvantage. So the question would essentially be like, what can we do here? Well, let's say that there is a player on the button here. You can't take away their button from them, so this player does wait a hand. And in this case, there's not a player on the button here. But now they're basically you're basically changing things if you let this seat or this seat get the button by saying now you have two shots to get a dead button. And you're expanding the ability for somebody to get a good seat. There's only one way that I can think of where you can actually allow this player to play in this particular hand, and that's to make them be the big blind. So you would push both the small blind and the big blind back, have them post a big blind. We'll get some change for them. And you have a big blind only this hand and a big blind ante. And then the next hand, the button is going to stay here if you do it like that, which a lot of people don't like. I'm not saying it's the best solution. But the next hand, they would be the small blind. Okay. This person, hold on. Oh, it doesn't work that way. What did I just do? The next hand, they're the small one. No, it doesn't work. There's no simple way to do it unless they pay all the blinds. I mean, I, actually, so this is done in cash games all the time. Why not just have them post all the blinds? Dead small, big, get them in the hand. I don't like giving them the button because they're not in the button seat. It's like if we're gonna make up a rule, why not require the player? We're already having people put in the blind. Hold on. What do I think? So the truth is I don't care. I say, yeah, let's figure out a way to get them in and let's make it universal. That's what I say. But you can't just do this as a one-off. This is something that would have to be discussed, tested for a couple of years, maybe as a recommended procedure for tournament, and then actually implemented into the tournament. And then you have the problem of players like slow walking to the table, and then if they get into that situation, it gets complicated for the dealers. See, the thing about buying the button in a cash game is you give the players the option to do it. So so here's what I'll say. My answer is through the TDA, I think we could come up with a way for this to be a forced by the button. And I think it's fine to leave the small blind out here because the big blind ante is enough. And I think you can just have them be the big blind and the big blind ante on their very first hand and get the button the next hand. I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be able to do this if they can just be the button sometimes. Like I could see that being totally fine. And then you just move them the button next time and you're like, wait, but they didn't pay the small blind. And you're like, you know what, it's fine. They got stuck having to pay a big blind their very first hand, and then there's the argument they could get the button. That's the easiest way to get them in. If you want to have them throw the extra 100 in for the small blind too, I think that the small blind is a little overkill considering that like this is a rule taken from cash game and there's no big blind ante in cash game. But I think that would be my solution, but it would have to be discussed and then refined amongst like the TDA folk who have so much experience and innovation and understanding around stuff like this. So that's probably what I would say. It says audio volume is very low. Let me see what I can do about that. Thank you. Um, all right. So if you just had your volume, uh, if you just had your volume way up, maybe turn it back down. I assume that that's better. If you could let me know, Kev. Thank you for that, by the way. Um, All right, so that's what I would probably say there. And then let's see some of the comments, and this is what you typically get. I'm not saying I haven't seen this, so I don't know. It's wrong because the floor should have seated the new player in seat 8. Usually these are randomly assigned seats, so I don't agree with that. And my guess is that's probably what these responses are. Yeah, so I'm assuming the player was a late registrant, someone who re-entered randomly assigned seats, basically. The button should never move to seat 9. I tend to agree with that. I don't think that's the right solution. But the truth is, we care so much about certain things that literally don't matter. Like, the fact that this happened is not a travesty. It's not a violation to human rights. It's like a little detail that a dealer sort of just like thought made sense. And yeah, you could argue it impacts the tournament, but like they could easily have just gone to seat 8 and it would have been everyone would have been fine with it. Like whenever you have a situation like that, I get that maybe this isn't the solution that we want to use, but to get all bent out of shape and not understand that a person tried to create a solution and like let's be okay with that. Like I'm not all for all of that type of insanity. If you go with the technical way of handling this, you can't go wrong. It's a dead button in seat 8. New player in seat is in seat 9, and that isn't a legitimate position. A TDA can adjust as he sees fit based on the situation in the tournament at that moment, but a dealer just go with the technicality of the rules. Right. So I totally support wanting to get this player in the tournament, and maybe I didn't explain this properly, but this person said it really nicely. The traditional way to handle it is they just literally wait one hand and everybody's fine. Like everyone's fine. They come in behind the button, they wait one hand, no big deal. Literally the simplest thing in the world. Much better volume. Hey, thank you. Appreciate you telling me that. And sometimes I don't know. The button was dead in seat 8, not 9. He waits a hand between the blinds and the button, right? So that's another thing that happens sometimes in these comments. Like we know that that's the solution when we're posing the question in the first place. And we're taking it a step further and saying, hey, there's a problem that do we really need to make this player wait a hand? And here's a solution that I'm proposing. What do you guys think? Plus, there's reference to a previous question. I like the idea in that circumstance. Even when there's not a dead button, even if there's a player with chips here on the button, I personally actually like the solution of just requiring this person to post in between, sort of like buying the button, but like a tournament modified version for the accounting for the fact that there's a big blind ante. I think because of the big blind ante, it's completely fine to require them to I'm trying to find my air quotes, buy the button. I haven't thought it all the way through, but I think it's a good solution. Like and then they just get the button the next hand and everybody's fine and everything's fine. It actually seems like that to me that would be where my vote would go. And I also don't know. I haven't thought it all the way through. I'm just reacting to this on the spot. So all right. Appreciate you guys bearing with me for that. In my downtime, I'll go back to more of these. But for right now, let's see. I guess I'll put that up. For right now, we're just gonna keep it like this. And I am going to oh, that's where this is. Move this over. I'm going to try to fit everything on the screen. Shrink this down a little. Here we go. Put it on this side. Yeah, that makes more sense. All right. Let's see. Everyone would rather wait a hand over posting. If you max late reg, you're going to feel stiffed. Yeah, so that's the other side too. Um, it's true. The player only wants to play that hand if they get the button. They're not interested in jumping in and playing that hand if they're going to post immediately. And so that's a really good point. So I would say if you're trying to get people in, then let's make them put money in there instead of moving the button over. And if you're realizing what was just stated, that's a completely accurate way of assessing this, nobody would want to jump in and have to post there. So it's actually better to just let them not play the hand. So totally, totally valid point. Um, from a tournament standpoint, I think so. Believe it or not, the world of poker is all about making money. And I say that sarcastically. Like we all know that, casinos make a ton of money, table games and slots, and then poker is like way down here compared to those. But still, it's a money-making business. And theoretically, if everyone plays every hand, especially in a tournament, the tournament ends quicker, theoretically. So I do think there's actually a value to getting people to play every single hand instead of making them sit out and wait. I think that if you were to simulate it over and over and over again, the tournament might end quicker. You might be able to get more people in. Imagine a tournament where the number of tables are at capacity and you want players to get knocked out quicker. I don't know. I'm just sort of talking through this without having thought it through. Maybe there is incentive to change the rule, but to your point, you don't want to change rules that feel worse for players. And so moving the button over just doesn't feel like it's in integrity, right? Like they already had their draw at the button and they didn't get it. And you know, that's the one circumstance. You're trying if you want to get them in, do it with integrity. And then the truth is they probably don't want to be in if it means they have to post a big blind ante and a big blind. So good point there. Cash is different. The blinds don't change. Also, like in cash, people don't you don't have a finite number of chips. You can always just buy in more. Um, All right, so going back to Jamon, I've been a fan of your channel for a while. I'm a longtime poker player. I've considered becoming a dealer from time to time. I live about an hour and a half from LA, and the commute would be a nightmare with traffic. So I'm trying to figure out logistically if it makes sense for me to try to pursue becoming one, or if I would need to move elsewhere to make it work. Um, so I mean, it's a good question. That Let me see. I don't know LA that well. I have been there a couple of times. I spent some time in Santa Ana near Irving and Irvine. It's been a while. I actually forget how to pronounce it. But um, I don't really know the poker scene from the dealer's perspective out there that well. I can tell you places like Texas and all that stuff are like I know a lot more about Texas and Florida and Washington State even. And to a degree like Vegas, and I have conversations about it. So, if you have an hour and a half commute to the nearest poker room, if you're looking to become a poker dealer, here's what I'll say. First of all, if you want to become a poker dealer, I think it's best for people who actually could move anywhere in the country that they want. And I'm not saying like LA is not a good place to be a poker dealer. I don't really know what it's like out there, but as a general rule of thumb, there are people in this world that are not tied to specific geographic locations, right? Like if you've got kids and they're in school, you're probably not going to want to move. But if you're not tied down like that and you don't have a reason to stay in one city, I would say absolutely, absolutely train to be a poker dealer. You could join my remote school, for instance, and then you might even be able to get a job before you have to move somewhere, and you just send your audition video after you pass it to all these different poker rooms. And of course, there's no guarantee you pass, but if you put the work in, it should work out. So, I mean, yeah, it's tough because like if you're tied to one place, there's a couple factors. Number one, if you learn to do the job, they have to choose to hire you, which means you have to pass their audition and their interview, right? A lot of the time, the interview and the audition are baked into one thing, and you might not actually realize that the interview is included in the audition. So you might do really well in the audition, and you might not pass the interview, and you might not realize why. So if there's exactly one poker room that's an option for you, I mean, it doesn't really hurt anything to learn how to be a poker dealer and then decide. It's 6 weeks of your life. It's not like you got to go to a 4-year college to get a degree in like an engineering thing, like I did that I never really used. But like 6 weeks in order to figure that out is great. But if you're somebody that could move, like could move, if you're somebody that could move, I mean, go for it. It's a life that you could totally just like try on like a suit and see if you like it. And you'll make some money along the way and meet a lot of cool people. And I mean, that's how I look at it. The hour and a half commute each way, what typically happens when people have commutes as poker dealers is the days that they have more traffic that they have to deal with and they get to work a little bit late, they don't feel good. And the days that they get there, like without the traffic, a lot of the time they feel like neutral because that's how they want it to be. And then eventually you get tired of fighting the traffic. But that's with any job, right? Like an hour and a half for any job is probably not the ideal scenario. What I find is that poker dealers that are like committed to the dealing job, they tend to like move closer and closer to the poker room that they're at over time of having the job because it's just nice getting to like live really close. Um, but in terms of learning the skill, like if you've been a long time poker player, it might be even easier for you to learn how to do the job than some people because you're going to be familiar with a lot of the rules and your journey and your path there will be a bit simpler, honestly. It's a good question. This is the type of thing too. If you're considering joining remote school, if you just reach out to me and send me an email, like we could totally discuss if it's right for you. I don't mind spending like 10 minutes on the phone with somebody that's like genuinely considering this like fork in the road choice for themselves that can really impact their life. Like there's a reason that I made the self-paced complete course on how to deal poker so inexpensive for somebody. Like there's a lot of people out there that just want that chance to be able to change their life and double their income or more sometimes. And the fact that you can learn a skill like that in 6 weeks is absolutely wild when you compare it to the six figures that people spend going to 4-year universities where they don't even get guaranteed a job. And I mean, I'm not saying you get guaranteed a job learning how to be a poker dealer, but there's a lot of jobs out there. The industry is always hiring. It's just a question of where and the timing, right? Like in Texas, where I work, it's like 3-month cycles roughly. Every 3 months or so, you can get hired, sometimes even quicker. Other places it's even quicker than that. Other places it's like every 6 months. I've almost never seen a poker room that's not hiring more free or less. I've almost never seen a poker room where 6 months is the like I've never seen it be a year or 2-year cycles. That's what I'm trying to say. It's always more frequently than that. So I mean, that's the other side of this too. Like, why not just learn to do the skill and then you have it? You only get one life. I have dealt poker in different parts of my life, and then I exited it for 5 years, and then it was just like there for me when I needed it. I tried the whole entrepreneur thing. I raised 6 figures worth of money for a business that I was trying to do. It has nothing to do with poker. It was great experience. I got really far in it. We still ran out of money. And then one day I'm like, oh my God, I need to be able to pay for my life. And I'm just like, well, let me just go deal poker again. It's so nice having that in the back pocket, even if you don't use it today. So there's just, I mean, obviously I've got a lot to say about that. Um, but yeah, Jamon, feel free to reach out to me, marc@truepokerdealer.com, mark@truepokerdealer.com, Mark with a C, and we can discuss it. Like I'm happy to help you make that decision. Everyone would rather wait a hand over, right? Yeah, said that. Cash is different. Yep. Tracy says, in cash games where you have multiple all-ins, I've gotten into the habit of first getting the main pot right, then kind of determining the side pot situation after dealing out the rest of the board. Um, then kind of determining the side pot situation after dealing with the rest of the board. Is this a bad habit? Should I first get the side pots right? It's a funny question. I actually like that personally, and I do teach that in my course. I teach the fundamental way to do it. Then I teach a couple of shortcuts, and I think it has more to do with the expectation of the players and what they're used to in the room that you're working in. In some rooms, they're actually going to be used to that because the dealers do it sometimes and they like it because it's quicker. Nobody wants to have to build 6 side pots when the guy with the big stack has a 60% chance of winning the hand and you wouldn't have to build any of it. But the challenge is, after people start tabling their hands, it can be scary for the players at the table to trust that the money's right, everything's sort of happening at the same time, and they're uncomfortable. So like nowadays, like when I dealt at the Hard Rock, I used to do it that way in Florida, where I would just bring the boards and then, if I needed to, I would figure out all the side pots depending on who won. So you sort of like give yourself a chance to not have to do all that. But then if the one person wins the inside pot, the next person wins the inside pot, you need to know how to build that. I do teach that in my course. And I also teach that with you when I do remote school. But I don't do that when I deal in Dallas now, because the times that I start doing that, I'm the only dealer in the room that would be doing that, and the players aren't used to it and they're uncomfortable with it. I can't say never. I've done it a couple of times when the players have been asking me at the types of tables where like they've played in other rooms and they are used to that and they know that I know how to do it. But for the most part, like I say it is a little bit more dangerous to do, but actually not that much more dangerous. And if it's supported by the room that you work in, I think it's totally fine. And for those that don't understand what I'm saying exactly, there is a different procedure associated with sort of going outside in, sorry, inside out. So you basically figure out where the main pot goes first, and you just keep it going that way, and you just show hands, show hands, show hands until all the hands are shown down, and okay, this person's winning this and this is, and then you build it backwards, for whatever's needed. It's a quicker method for sure, but also the thing is that when the players aren't comfortable with it, it's scary for them, is the truth. And so if they're comfortable with it, you can do it. Also, obviously at all times, do what your supervisor says. If your supervisor says do it, do it. If your supervisor says don't do it, don't do it. If your supervisor doesn't say anything and you just tried it a few times and the players seem cool with it, it is a legitimate way of figuring things out and dealing. And sometimes if you make a mistake, it can be brutal, but that's true for any side pots. That's the funny thing too, is that there's no universal way to deal all the way for everything. And so we need to understand a lot of the procedure that exists out there has just been made up by somebody that thought it made sense. And sometimes there's other procedure that makes more sense. So that's my answer on that. Jacob says, I don't even make the main pot until the hand is over. Can't mess anything up you haven't touched. Count the winner. Nice. So I mean, sometimes, so sometimes, like if everyone's all in pre-flop, then I agree with that too. I would probably take, if there's dead money, I would burn under that. I would always want a chip to burn under. There's just a little game protection around that. But yeah, and it's funny too, because I'm sure that there are people watching this that are uncomfortable with the idea of not building the pots, um, you know, and that's okay. But I do an example of that in my course. So yeah, all right. So let's see. That's all the comments there, and appreciate you guys for being here. Because there's no more comments, I'm gonna go back to Facebook and find another interesting question. Let's see what we got here in the poker dealers group. All right, let me find one here. So, Jaymon said, appreciate the thoughtful response. I get back home on the 17th. We'll reach out through email. Great, that sounds awesome. My remote school starts the 16th. If I haven't filled it up, there's limited spots because it's a school and I need to be able to give everyone enough attention. If I haven't filled it up, the 17th, if you still wanted to join, you might be able to. You'd have to ask me. But like the orientation video is the only thing you miss. But either way, yeah, we can have a conversation and see what makes sense for you, and whether it's now or later through me, someone else, whatever. I'm happy to help you. Um, let's see. All right, so I'm gonna bring this back up on the screen here, and we'll hide this one. Got it. Put this up here for now. And how do I get this on the screen? There we go. All right. I don't know what these say, so I'm just going through. Things that make me happy as a dealer. Been in the industry for a while now, and I've learned that there are certain things that make me happy as a dealer. One, good cards. This is in front of my face. That's funny. Absolutely, absolutely agree with that. The higher quality the cards are, and there's no exception to this truth. The higher quality the cards are, the better it feels to be dealing. These cards right here, I recommend these. These are the Copags. You can't just buy any cards at home, right? It's just not always available. But these for practicing, they feel great. I wish all casino cards at least felt as good as this, if not better. The ones that they use at the Texas Card House Dallas rooms are absolutely phenomenal, and they used to be trash. And it's different cards now, obviously. I think they're faded spades. I don't actually know that for sure. Maybe I'm just giving them credit when I shouldn't be, but um, as a dealer, like my wrists, my hands, the fine motor skills get exhausted with bad cards that are sticky, that don't that it's just there's so many things about it. So absolutely, absolutely. And as a poker room, you might spend more money on good cards, but you're making that money back in the speed that the dealers can go and just so many different things. The experience for the players, the experience for the dealers, the experience for everybody. Good cards is an absolute, absolute. It says when the cards are overly warped or sticky, it makes it difficult to deal a smooth game. It almost feels like you're fighting against a deck. Yep. Good felt. Yeah, that I mean that's absolutely true for sure as well. Sometimes when felts get worn down, so there's two different sides to this. One is the felt itself being good, right? So there's a thing called gaming suede in the industry that personally I've really liked. um, but the fact of the matter is the felt itself needs to be good. It needs to grab the card. I've dealt on felts before where when you go like this and you try to slide the cards together, because of the nature of the felt, they all go like this, and that is so annoying. And so there's some versions of Speed Clot that do that. I mean, it sounds cool, right? I have a buddy who's getting a whole renovation on his house. He's putting a lot of money into it, and he said he wants to have a poker table downstairs, which I was shocked to hear because I've never heard him utter the word poker in 10 years. And he was like, yeah, I want to get good quality stuff. Do you make merchandise that's like super high quality? I was like, I dabbled with merch a little bit, and I thought the stuff I had was okay, but um it's just like it's I have to sell so much stuff in order to make any reasonable amount of profit that I just haven't bothered with it. And so, but I was telling him like, oh, let me help you when you put together your home poker setup, because there's ways to do it well, and there's a ton of ways to do it not well. And felt is a perfect example. Like there's some really high quality felt. This felt right here is trash. This is a training table. On the original True Poker Dealer table that I leave at my friend Jerry's house because he helped me build it, and it's just a beautiful centerpiece to his house. On that table, we use gaming suede. It's like a $300 felt, and it's so nice. And then there's the other side of it too, which is the amount of wear on the felt. So even your best felt in the world, over time with dealers, shuffling on it and all this stuff, the little microfibers from every single thing, like right here might get real dirty and worn down. Over here might get sort of dirty and worn down. And then it gets sort of grimy. Like you can clean it to a degree, but no felt is going to last forever. And as they start to get all mucked and dirty, then you got to replace them. And poker rooms do replace felts on a somewhat regular basis. I think it might be once a year or so, maybe once every 6 months. I actually forget. I used to know this, but I stopped being on the supervisor manager side and started dealing and working with you guys. So I'm a little disconnected from that side of it, but yeah. So I mean, that's oh, maybe I should leave the Facebook thing up so people can see what this actually is. Um, But yeah, good felt makes a big difference, and that's what he's talking about. I'm gonna go to a question. I wanna go to something that's a little bit more interesting. Let me see. How good are you as a dealer? What are the top 10 most common floor calls? That's a bit more involved. Let's see. All right, how about this one? Randy says playing a poker. Also, Randy. Hey, what's up, Randy? Playing a poker tournament last weekend. Seat one says, if you bet, I will make it 10,000. Seat six does bet. Action is then on seat one. Seat one asks random player, what did I say? Player responds, repeating what he said. Seat one said. Then seat one says, you heard him? 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, 4 second. Chuckles and says, I fold, shoving his cards forward. Got it. Thoughts from a dealer perspective, WSOP ruling for this type of behavior. What am I a little more concerned with is what did I say, followed by you heard him, which to me was said in a that's the bet tone, followed by the pause, the fold, and of course the angle and the floor call. The dealer in this case allowed the player to fold, no floor call, nothing more said. I was not involved in the hand. Thanks for your thoughts. So that is a classic example of what do I do as a dealer, first of all. So the good news is, as a dealer, your job's actually pretty easy there. As a dealer, when somebody announces an action and it's a conditional action. So I'm going to say this to you now. If someone announces a conditional action and then the thing that they announced conditionally happens, uh, the floor should be called. And this may not have always been the case, but there's become much more precedent over the last decade for, like, if you bet, I'll call being held to the player who says it. And because of that, I think as a dealer, like whenever anything unusual happens, the rule of thumb is you call a floor. There's no reason for you to be the one to like decide what to do, to let it go, or anything like that. And, especially in a tournament or something like that, or in a traditional cash game, you let it go. The one exception I might make is in like, you've got your private games in the room where that just has a totally different dynamic to it. Um, it's like if you're in a glass enclosed room where the players have like 100K on the table each, and they have to be invited to the game. The players are going to do all kinds of weird stuff like this. You don't want somebody to angle. This is not what this person's talking about. The fact that they says I will make it 10,000 probably means this is a tournament. I just want to cover this scenario that like for the longest time the poker world sort of teaches each other that private games are to be are to be treated the same as every other game, and that's just not smart or realistic. Like that's not good for anybody. That being said, in your traditional game, and especially in a tournament, if a player says something like what's described here, where they say right here, seat one says, if you bet, I'll make it 10,000. You want to leave this in the hands of your supervisor, and then it's up to the supervisor staff to figure out what to do here. So then now the question is actually a floor call, floor ruling. And this is part of where I say there's not really guidance for people asking these questions on the channel or on Facebook. Like these are just poker dealers getting together, asking questions, and then other poker dealers giving their answers. It's very, very difficult to answer this question without not only having been a supervisor, but having been a supervisor for a while in recent times, where the current trends and precedents and logic that's associated with running these games and supervising these games is something that you're really up to date with. Um, in this case here, like if this were 15 years ago, and it's, let's say that it's 2011, 15 years ago exactly, I was supervising back then. Back then, I don't think that there was very much precedent for this to be anything but a fold. I think that there was precedent back then for the player, and it didn't feel right, but following the rule from a more technical place, this would have been a fold. Since then, and this is why I say it's important to be up to date as a supervisor too. Since then, I know that there are cases where um, floor rulings have started to lean more toward the other side. And so for this, if I were the floor coming to the table, first of all, I would know what my room does for stuff like this. I think an undervalued way to handle something like this is to actually get a consult from a shift manager. So like if I'm a supervisor and I don't know what our room does for this, I listen to the whole scenario, which by the way, all the details, like you can't capture all the details properly in a comment like this in most cases. We'd almost need a standard way of communicating in order for that to be clear. Because I typically say, unless I was there, I might not know all the details. So like it's hard for me to actually give a valuable ruling here. But I think nowadays, I would either, if I knew what the room did, I would do that, and I would probably get a shift manager for something like this where there's a precedent to be set. You don't want to set a precedent in a room if you're not the person responsible for doing that in the room. And so number one as a floor, you get the person in charge for these types of things that set precedents in your room. If I'm the person in charge, I am probably going to lean more toward requiring the player to fulfill the announced action because that's more common in today's poker. And oh, interesting. And I yeah, I think I would lean that way. Um Apologies, but I am getting a phone call from my child's teacher. So I just need to respond to them. Um, so yeah, like that's probably where I would lean. The thing is, like rules are generally created in order to preserve fairness in poker, and if somebody is angling, um, we want to handle that. You could also say that this is a one-off, and as a shift manager, you could just handle it as a one-off. And if I'm an experienced supervisor, I do feel comfortable doing that, right? And announcing like this does not mean that this is how we handle this, and there's intelligent language behind that. Um, but in this specific case, based on everything that was just described to me, including what you, the player who I'm making this ruling arguably against, said that you said, this is the ruling that I think is the right thing to do here, and this is what I'm going to do right now, and something like that. It's sort of in the TD1 range of thoughts, Um, Tournament Director Rule 1. Great. You know, Sometimes you just got to be a dad and be okay with it. It is what it is. All right, so let's go to the next one. Why not? See what else is on here. So this says tournament heads up. Player A goes all in while player B is thinking. A declares an amount that is way off. Should the dealer tell B the number is wrong? Alternatively, what if a third player tries to be helpful by giving the count but gives the wrong number? So as a dealer, when player A goes all in while player B is thinking, and A declares an amount that's way off, the dealer has to absolutely immediately correct that number. You cannot allow that verbal declaration of an incorrect amount to to stand. So it's a pretty straightforward one. I mean, uh, it's a reasonable question because we're so strong on communicating that um, we don't announce the amount of an all-in unless asked, and technically nobody asked, but we can't allow misinformation. Like sometimes you got to go into the tank with logic here, and I like anybody who asks a question like this is trying to get clarification. What if a third player tries to be helpful by giving the count but gives the wrong number? Same thing. You always correct that. You never allow a you never allow an incorrect number to be stated by anybody for a bet. Similarly, if the dealer says the wrong amount when they're counting, somebody should correct them as well. If you're a player and you see that the dealer miscounted a stack, you should speak up. Absolutely. It is not interfering with the hand. It is correcting a mistake that potentially could impact the hand in a negative way. And that's not like sometimes we get really like focused on technical rules and stuff and get a little bit confused about what we're actually doing here. people that work in the poker room, we're facilitating a game. We're trying to make this game as clean as possible so that the players can play and compete against each other. And misinformation, it falls on us, right? If there's misinformation out there, well, this is not the game, right? The game is not, oh, someone gave misinformation and that's what we want them now to have to deal with. No, we are there to make sure that we're making it so that they can play the game with correct information. Like it's a major part of it, and it's a reasonable question. Um, Let me see. Yeah, so once they stated a number, it should be counted to verify. When false information is being put out there, I generally think of it as my responsibility to correct it as a dealer, blah, blah, blah. All right, let's see what else. I'm seeing if there's any questions here about poker stuff. All right, here's one. I'm just reading it now as we go. Says, need some input here. 1-3 no limit, heads up on the river. Player number 1 and first to act says all in, but the dealer here is $50. The dealer announces 50 is the bet. Player 2 snap calls and places 2 greens out and tables his hand. All of this happened in just a few seconds. Player 1 has the nuts and is expecting his all in bet to stand. Players sitting near number 1 say they heard him say all in. What is your call? Is player 2 responsible to cover the all in or just the $50? Um, so I mean, these situations are absolutely brutal, like brutal to have to go as a supervisor and make a ruling. And I think when it comes to something like this, first of all, obviously, as a dealer, you call the floor, right? That's a simple, simple, simple decision. And when something like this happens, the only thing you can do is you can lean on the rules that exist, which are built to protect everybody's interest and preserve fairness, and then evaluate as a supervisor like what really is the most fair thing here. And fairness is a complicated word because there's so many different perspectives to what could be considered fair. So, as I come to a table and I look at a situation like this, as a supervisor, which I was a supervisor for almost a decade, as a supervisor, I come to the table and I start asking questions. Okay, the first thing that I'll ask, so let's say that the dealer says, I'll come to the dealer and I'll go close to their shoulder, like in a suit, close to the dealer's shoulder, sort of lean in a little bit, and I'll talk in a loud enough voice for everyone to hear, but quiet, loud voice, right? Because that shuts everybody up because they want to hear what's being said. And I'll tell the dealer, I'd explain what happened, and they talk me through, and they basically, in this case, they'll say, all right, this player was first to act. I heard him say $50. I announced $50, and then this player called immediately. Um, and this player apparently said all in, and the rest of them are saying he said all in. And this is an example of why these types of questions are really tricky, right? And you can't fall into the trap of giving a definitive answer without all the information, which we don't have here. So it says heads up on the runner, and the player says all in. It does not say what they did with their money. Did they throw out exactly 50? Did they throw out even a chip? Did they throw out a stack? Like, what did they do? And that's one reason why, as a dealer, if a player makes an announcement that they're going all in, putting money in the pot, anything, a bet, as a dealer, you require them to put money in the pot first. The very first thing you do as a dealer is you require them to put money in the pot. Now, it's okay to say 50 and then say, I need you to put some out, right? So when I say first, don't take it too literally. But it's something like they say all in or they say 50, whatever I hear, I say, I need you to put money in the pot, right? Or you could say 50, but put it in the pot. And that creates the commitment to something with more clarity. Whatever they choose to do has a tremendous opportunity to help clarify any confusion. And the primary starting point for confusion that we're trying to avoid is we want them to prove to everyone at the table in the surveillance cameras that they are in fact putting money in the pot, that confirms that they made, because they didn't just say olive, right? which if somebody says olive, obviously that's an angle, but like if somebody says, "What do you want in your martini?" and but they mouth it to them like a waitress and they say olive, all of a sudden it's possible that that happened completely coincidentally, right? So we just cover all our bases. We make it super simple and we say, we want you to put money in the pot as the dealer. And so like I'll tell them throw at least one chip in the pot. And then yeah, I'm gonna say 50 is the bet. If 50 is the bet, I want to say it loud enough for them to hear. Did this dealer say it loud enough? As a supervisor, I'm saying, so you said 50. Did you say it loud enough? Did you go like this? Was the player over here and you turned away from the person whose action it is? And did you say 50? Or did you announce clearly and loudly 50? All of this information matters as a supervisor when you come to the table in order to determine what's fair. If the player who set all in had a tremendous amount of like if they had 10 opportunities to correct it, even if it happened quickly, if they had 10 opportunities to correct it, it's a different overall experience for everyone at the table for what's fair than if it all really truly did happen real quick and they had no chance to correct it. And then the responsibility has to fall on the player more to confirm what the all in was. So I mean, it's these are the things that you evaluate when you come to the table as a supervisor, and they can be tricky. Let's see what else we got. Um, let's see. Oh, this is saying that it's time to start training. WSOP 2026 is coming up. It's an advertisement for Vegas Casino Dealer Academy, and my business is the same, right? You want to get in the World Series of Poker, you could join remote school with me. Um, my school starts on February 16th, and we will be done in time for people to get into the World Series. So if that's something you want to try, maybe you do remote school. Income expense tracking. Let's see. They're looking for help for taxes and stuff. Yeah, taxes can be an interesting thing. There's a credit now that you can take for cash tips or whatever. Um, let's see. I'm just gonna read this. I don't know what they're gonna say or ask or anything, but all right. It says, hello everyone. I currently work in Atlantic City as a full-time dual rate table games dealer supervisor. Not gonna lie, I love the job as being a dealer and supervisor as much and much prefer to work as a supervisor. I've only been in the casino business for roughly 2.5 years. I've learned how to deal poker in 2022, and from there, I did not have much success in landing any sort of poker work until 2024 as a tournament poker dealer during Borgata's poker series events. The poker dealers tend to make more money than table games dealers, being that they keep their own tips. If anyone's a casual and or regular part-time poker dealer, what are your typical hours like? Whether it's at Borgata, Caesars property, or Philly casinos like Rivers Live or Parks. The final question is whether or not anyone had to go to school to learn all the poker games. If so, how much did you pay for school and how long was it? Interesting. All right, well, let's dive into the answers here. Obviously, I have my thoughts on that. In California, card room table or the cal site makes more than the poker dealers, especially if you're a woman in poker dealer. Let me see. It says in California card rooms, I think they're saying table games makes more than poker dealers. Um, let me see. I don't actually understand what is being said here. Too bad. All right, I'm gonna skip that. Let's see. Where is this? Depends on the market, but table games has a higher ceiling for income than poker does, is what this person says. I mean, it's interesting. Like, I advertise 25 to 40 plus an hour. I think nowadays it's fair to say 30 to 50 an hour. I almost never experience a dealer making less than 30 an hour. Table games, it's like it can be you can work at like a small casino. I know that the Seminoles they make you start at like the classic casino and you're making less than $20 an hour when you start, but then when you get up to the guitar hotel, it can be a lot of money. It can be more than 50 an hour because they're all splitting tips and some of the tips are just like huge that come in. But it's harder to get the jobs in table games that pay more. A lot of the time as a table games dealer, I think you can get stuck at a smaller amount. So it's just like it depends on the amount of business that's at the casino that you're at. Um, I do tend to think overall poker is slightly better, but it just varies so much. Um, if you see 25 to 50 table minimum table games in large casinos, the tip rates might be really good in those places, with those being the minimums. But I mean, poker is a consistent 30 to 50 plus an hour, and for women it can be even higher. Let's see. Depends on the area. Stay away from New England, Florida, and Texas are good. That's just what they say. Poker dealers make more consistent money. You want to make 300 a day. Deal poker, you willing to make 90 one day and 1600 the next. Deal KYO tables. Keep your own tables. For the year, I've seen about 20% more in tables than I did in poker, but there's been some lean months. Got a budget right. So that's interesting. Poker is consistent, is what they're saying. And then table games, you can just smash one day and it covers for a long other period of time. It's also, I think it's pretty unusual to have a keep your own table games room because, like, everybody's going to want to deal the $500 blackjack table. Whereas um, like for poker, it's pretty unusual to share tips nowadays because, uh, throughout the day, you just like go to this game, go to this game, go to this game. Yeah, I mean that's how I look at it. I did deal table games, by the way. I spent a couple years doing it. It was a small casino in Washington State, and but I mean I definitely dealt in supervised table games, craps, all that stuff as well. So I have some insight. My tip rate was super low, but it was because it was a tiny casino. Poker definitely made more money at that place. I mean, and it's a good thing, right? Like, if the answer is table games, that's okay because we're talking 30 to 50 plus an hour as a poker dealer. But like they said, it's more consistent with poker. I think that's true. Let me see. Well, the table games dealers in my San Diego casino all drive Beamers and Mercedes. U.S. poker dealers all drive Nissans and Hondas. That's not true. So yeah, it's true. Poker is more consistent day to day, but the real money is out in the pits. Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of dealers that so here's the thing too, like poker dealers a lot of the time will not want to get a flashy car so that players continue to be generous. I mean, it is what it is, right? Like I've been there for all the conversations. Oh, I just got a Rolex and I don't want to wear it at the table because now people might tip me less, blah blah blah. No disrespect intended, but I have to say, after being in the business for 30 plus years, oh, you can't see this. Where is it? Um, Let me see. No disrespect intended. After being in the business for 30 plus years, from brush to manager director to be an effective supervisor, you need more years in the box. The best supervisors, managers, and directors come up through the ranks. Okay, it doesn't seem related. Um, let's see. What was the original question? Maybe I missed or I forgot it. Oh yeah, there's so many pieces to this. All right. Um, yeah, the best supervisors and directors came up through the ranks. Yeah, that's true. I mean, I well, it's not true. I've actually worked with people that did not deal, that maybe dealt very briefly and were excellent supervisors, managers. Everybody's got a different skill set, but 95 to 99% of the time, if somebody skips the step, even of the chip runner job, sometimes like if you skip the step of doing any of that work, which as a supervisor you end up chip running little bits here and there, so you get that experience. But if you skip the step of dealing, it's definitely going to be hard for you to manage the dealers. You just don't get it. Like, it's that simple. Even in my case, when I started dealing, I was a dual table games, poker. Like, I would supervise and deal on any given day for like 2 years within a poker room and table games. And I think I actually did get promoted as supervisor a little bit too quickly because it did make it a little bit hard. When I was a full-time poker supervisor, I don't think I'd actually had quite enough experience as a dealer to really be able to relate to the dealers. Nowadays, I gave up supervising, gave up shift managing, I went back to dealing, and there's something really strong for me about that. But back then, Like I didn't even understand what I didn't understand, and that's the truth of it. I do think that about 2 to 3 years as a dealer is incredibly valuable, whether it's table games or poker, before becoming a full-time floor, just to really gain that. And um, I think it's important as a poker dealer not only to have dealt for a while, but to have dealt both shifts, daytime and overnight. uh Poker is one of those things, like a lot of the culture is you don't want to have to work overnight shifts, you just don't want to have to do that. But the truth is, in poker, it rewards you to work the overnight shift because you usually make more money at that. I can't say 100% every single room, but man, have I learned a lot working the overnight shift. Just, I mean, the like poker rooms during the day are super super strict, and at night, a lot of the time they're not. And it's actually not because the supervisors don't make it that way. There's just so many factors that go into it. It doesn't make sense to have it be as strict overnight. Um, Players are half asleep. Like, it's just a totally different world. Um, so yeah, I mean, that's an interesting part to it. Let's see. Uh, all dealers should go to a good dealer school for so many reasons. I agree. Remote dealer school starts on the 16th. TruePokerDealer.com for more. It's the best investment you'll make in your future, and the investment is fairly minimal in time and cost. Get started on the right foot. So, on that note, I got my hair cut the other day, and I was actually thinking about it from this perspective, and this is totally, totally true. I'm gonna switch this out for a second and just share this. So it took me a long time to find a barber that I like, and you can make fun of my hair. I think it looks pretty good. I went to so many different people, and the little details about how the haircut went literally go back to their training. That's the difference for a barber. I mean, and some of it is the person and their ability to learn, but it's also the training. Like, did you learn all the details when you're learning to cut hair that make the difference between a real professional haircut and not? And this barber does not take that long either. It's just that they learned the details correctly from the start. I had a little conversation about this with him, and it's the same thing with dealing poker. And this is why, like, not just remote dealer school for me, but why learning from me is way better. And I'm sorry to all the other poker dealer schools out there. Like, I'm sorry. A lot of dealers have learned from my stuff, and a lot of them have learned from the self-paced course. And when I get someone that's been through the self-paced course and I work with them on a one-on-one video where I record it and I do my whole process that we do in the remote dealer school, it's like night and day for this person. They get attention on these details that show up on the table, and it makes everybody's experience 100 times better. And one of the biggest challenges in a regular poker dealer school that's not taught by me, because you could do this in a regular dealer school too, the stuff that I do remotely. One of the biggest differences is they don't use video. When I have a dealer that's in the box and they've learned and they've been learning for a lot of time, and I've got them sitting there in the box, whether it's in person or remotely, when they're showing me their skills, I got to start making corrections. I'm like, okay, you're doing great here. Just a couple of things. Let me make this adjustment to your hands here. Let me make this adjustment to your perspective. I got to make this adjustment in the way that you understand the rule. And when you just like fire things off and you pause someone and correct them and pause them and correct them and pause them and correct them, there is no way for that person to retain all that information. It's impossible. They can hear you. It's like, and like, it takes practice to make these corrections. So they can't just correct it on the spot and then keep going. That's why my methods are so powerful, because I can make all 30 corrections that you need when you're live with me in that video. And then I give you the video and the instructions of what to do in order to fix it after the fact. That's where the money is. And that's what you get in the remote dealer school. And you can't get that in a live school, because when someone's standing there and correcting you and they're going over and they're adjusting this and they're adjusting that, you got too many things to remember to figure it all out at the same time. So what you end up doing is you do your best to try to pass the audition, and that's great. Maybe you pass the audition. Maybe you pass their audition. Then you go to your actual audition, and maybe you even pass that. But then when you're actually dealing in the box, all of these things that you've been told, like, you end up having to rewrite it yourself and figure it out for yourself one thing at a time. And you have to do that anyway. But if you work with somebody like me, it's just night and day is all I can say. And I'm not that good of a salesperson. I don't think of myself as a salesman, but man, do I know what I'm doing when it comes to this stuff. I've been doing it for a long time and I've been utilizing video for years. And I've refined my technique with it, and that's why the remote dealer school is super powerful. Um, and so yeah, I just had to go on that tangent because uh, it's like it's just so true that you got to go to a good dealer school. You need a good instructor, somebody that not only cares about you passing the audition but also cares about your experience when you get the job. And for me, I mean, I'm accessible to any single person in the country that takes my course after they get the job. You can't always go back to your old school, but you can go back to me and you can talk with me and you can get more insight, and I'll remember you, and we still have your videos and we can see where you're at now, and you'll still have your setup, right? If you go to remote school with me and you have your setup, a year later, you're still going to have your setup. You'll still be able to use that setup. You could jump on another call with me and get the advanced information. All of it's available. So yeah. Also, just want to remind you guys, hit up the chat, say whatever you want in there. Um, I'm here to answer questions, to just spend time with everybody, whatever feels good for you. All right, let's keep going with this one. This is interesting. I mean, this is, going back to the actual question. The original question here is, what is this? Um, currently work, and they're basically asking like which one makes more money, what do you need in order to get into it? Is my experience like everyone else's experience? Let's see. Let's go down here. Um, Highland and I'm a casual. Let's see. Can you see the top of this? Highland and I'm a casual flex dealer at Borgata and part time at Live Casino, and also the owner, main instructor at Poker Dealer School of Philadelphia. Yes, I know we've spoken already before, but I'm going to answer your questions anyway. Listen, I don't have any problem if somebody puts a comment in here and they run a poker school. I'm a firm believer that there's many different places that you can learn. I just know how good of a job I do. Let me see. Do poker dealers tend to make more money than table games dealer? Absolutely, without a doubt. See, you can already hear that the person is selling instead of caring about the integrity of answering the question properly. Absolutely, without a doubt, is not true in all cases. I mean, I've seen table games in some specific huge casinos making 80 plus an hour. Absolutely, in all cases, it is just not true. That being said, it is consistent. It's very good money to be in poker, and it is hard. It's much harder to get the jobs at the high ceiling table games places than it is to get the job as a poker dealer where you're going to make in that range that's comfortable. That is true. My hours at Borgata are limited, flexible by choice. I can pick up shifts when I choose. At Live, I'm scheduled 3 to 4 days a week. Um, I too got trained at school, which was 4 weeks long, and the cost was around 1,200 at that time. That was 13 years ago. A lot has changed since then. You already have dealing experience, which suggests that you would not need to go to a school and be trained again from scratch unless you're certain things you need to refresh on. Please feel free to reach out anytime. You know what? I'm going to actually click this link. Poker Dealer School of Philadelphia. Let's see. So, I mean, I'll say it. I haven't been here. I guarantee you. I can't say that. I don't guarantee anything. Damn it. Yeah. All right. Well, they got a poker dealer school. I would pick me, is all I'm saying. And, if you guys watch my videos, you know what it's like to learn from me. But, let's see. What else do we got? I don't know. I was hoping that there'd be more like text information there, but um, let's see. See what the comments are. Uh, it says, "Hey Frank, I have applied at Borgata and even auditioned. The only problem I ran into was scheduling me my current full time in Borgata. I do like poker rooms that allow you to work at other poker rooms. Um, yeah, it's just them going back and forth. Let's see. No, that looks like that might be the end. All right. So it looks like I got about 10 minutes left here before I'm going to jump off for today. I will be back every day leading up to live school starting. I've got the remote dealer school coming up, and I am very excited about it. And Yeah, we're starting February 16th, and let's see. I am here for questions right now for another 10 minutes or so, and then I'll be back tomorrow. 10 a.m. The next handful of days in a row is just the time that worked in my schedule. Like, I'm going to be going to Cherokee, I think tomorrow. I'll be over at Cherokee. A friend of mine flew to town to spend some time over there. He's a higher up that works in the poker world, and he wants to see what the new technology is they're using for the World Series of Poker. So I'm probably going to head over there with him tomorrow and spend some time just being around the World Series. I hear that the Cherokee World Series of Poker is the largest World Series of Poker stop. I haven't seen it myself. I think we're getting it in Dallas, actually. I think Texas Card House now has a relationship with World Series of Poker, so that'll be interesting. If I happen to be out in Dallas during any of that, that would be a cool experience. But uh, yeah, so if you happen to be at Cherokee and you see me, say hi Thursday, most likely. Probably like I got a live stream at 10 in the morning Eastern time, so I'll probably be out there 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, maybe into the early evening, just to sort of check out what's going on over there. I don't plan on playing anything over at Cherokee, but I've only been to that actually. I live an hour away from Cherokee. I've only actually been there one time, and I did not play poker when I was there. And yeah, I mean, I am. I'm definitely excited to go there. I like that I've got someone to go with to go check it out, and it's nice. It's nice. I think that they're a beautiful casino. They're huge. I love the way they do smoking there, where it's non-smoking in the majority, and they have little smoking rooms as opposed to smoking everywhere with non-smoking areas. I hate that. By the way, we were talking about table games versus poker. I cannot believe that nobody talks about the smoking in table games as a negative. Like like poker, there's no smoking just about ever. Table games, smoking all over the place, and it's brutal. And you leave smelling like smoke. It used to be like that for me. It's still like that, but Cherokee's not like that. Jacob says, I've worked Cherokee the past 4 years and just happened to be skipping it this time. Oh no, I would have been there. I would have seen you. That would have been cool. Bummer. Well, that's cool that you worked it the past four years. Like, how do you like it when you go to there? Everyone says, I haven't talked to too many people, but everyone I've talked to that works it always says that they really love that stop. They look forward to it. I thought about working there for the tournament series instead of going to and from Dallas, but they're fixed times, and in Dallas I can come and go as I please and choose when I'm there. So like it literally, the first one I was thinking about was not this past Thanksgiving, but the one before that. And the tournament series started on Thanksgiving. I already had plans for Thanksgiving. It was like 3 months before it. And I just said, you know what? I just, you know, let me just keep the thing that I have the way that I have it. But there might be a time when I work the Cherokee events. I've definitely thought about it, and it's nice that it's only an hour away from me. Although not all hour drives are the same. If any of you have ever been to Cherokee, you know exactly what I just said. The one time I went there, it's not an hour driving on a smooth, straight highway. It is like there's some ways to get in there with highway, but no matter which way you go, I think I've only been there once, but I think no matter which way you go, you got to go through some windy, more challenging roads, and some of it's scenic if you go through the valley, Maggie Valley, I think it is. Um, that was going through Maggie Valley during the day is a pretty cool experience. But driving to and from Cherokee in the winter, today it was like in the 50s, so I assume it would be fine coming up soon. But like a week ago, I don't know about that. I don't like driving in snow, especially in places that don't salt the roads. But yeah, that's cool. All right, well, I got about 5 minutes left. If anybody's still there and they want to throw something in the chat, questions, comments, interesting facts about poker, sharing your thoughts, looking for my thoughts, just anything at all, I would be totally interested to respond to it. And if not, then I'll probably call it a day and say thank you for spending some time with me. I feel like today was a pretty good live stream. Yesterday was an interesting experiment. I was just basically on here getting some work done for remote school, and I think it was a little bit boring. So, I chose a new format for today. It's just back to me talking and chatting with you guys, and I pulled up some Facebook stuff, and I think maybe what I would do tomorrow is go through some more of the Facebook questions, but um, maybe make it a little bit bigger on the screen for people. But by the way, if there's anyone in the comments that wants to share with me what would have made it so that you liked this live stream better, I appreciate feedback for stuff like that. Jacob says it's busy usually, guaranteed an hour eight, guaranteed an 8 hour day minimum. Strings tend to be 2 to 5 tables long. Great. So it sounds like you work. I mean, I heard, I've never worked there, but I heard that the amount of money that you make is solid in the mid 30s per hour. And for tournament, that's fine. Um, and maybe I actually heard it wrong. Maybe it was in the 40s per hour. Actually, I'd be curious to hear. You probably don't want to share because it's one of those things. Man, I hate that we can't say how much money we get for this stuff. If I work at a poker room, it's considered to be in poor taste, but I just love transparency. That's with any industry though, right? Like you can't share all the details of anything. So um, so yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys being in the chat. Jacob, that's really funny that you're like watching and you normally deal there, but downs between 22 and 24. So that's pretty decent because that'll bring your hourly, like, let's assume you just said 2 to 4. So let's say it's an average of 3.5 tables, and then a break. Um, it's about 3.5 downs per 2 hours. So, and then, yeah, you get a little bit of a base pay. So, um, let's say 3.5 downs per 2 hours. So we'll say 23 times I'll say 3.3, and then plus 11. You said 5.5 divided by 2. Oh, so it's in the low 40s. Great. So I was actually way off in the mid 30s. You're over 40 bucks an hour if that's what you're saying. Did I do that wrong? That doesn't sound right. Hold on. It's 3.3 times 23. Yeah, 75 plus 11 divided by 2. Yeah, 43 an hour. Great. So that's really good. I mean, I like I do better than that when I'm in Dallas, but it's not that much better. And man, I would love to be able to just how many hours can you work, by the way? Like if you wanted to work 12 hours a day every single day at Cherokee for the World Series tournament series, would they let you? Curious what the answer is for that. Um, let's see. Well, yeah, curious what the answer is for that. And then it is time for me to wrap up my live stream. So I'm a little lazy, but I think it averaged out to 35. All right, well, I like that. Admitting that maybe you could get more tables if you like hustled a little bit more. Um, can't work start to finish as long as people sign the EO. Can't work start to finish as long as people sign the EO. Maybe that means you can work start to finish as long as people sign the EO. Oh, I see. So so it's like you're gonna get 8 hours, but you're just not 100% sure. And gotcha. All right, cool. Well, I mean, nothing wrong with that. Yeah, can work. That's what I figured. You can work start to finish as long as people sign the EO. Otherwise, they force you out. Pretty standard. Cool. Hey, appreciate all that. All right. Well, it is about that time. And for those that have been in this live stream, appreciate you for being here. And for anyone watching the replay, say hi in the comments. And yep, appreciate you guys. Remote school's coming up and starts February 16th. Sign up for it if you're thinking about it. Just do it. You're going to learn a skill. You'll end up becoming a poker dealer and you'll have this way to make money for the rest of your life. So